It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker and translator, and also Mrs. Rinpoche. Nyoshul Khenpo Rinpoche is one of the senior-most Nyingma Lamas and one of the most recognized widely as one of the most eminent authorities of who is part of the living Tibetan Buddhist traditions. He is one of the main lineage holders of what is known as the Longchen Ningtik, or heart, innermost essence teachings of the innate great perfection, Dzogchen. Particularly the lineage of Paltro Rinpoche, received from his own root guru, the renowned master of crazy wisdom, Khenpo Naga. Khenpo Rinpoche has been one of the main resident teachers at the 3-year retreats in France. He is renowned as the teacher of many famous teachers, including Sogyal Rinpoche, Chagdra Rinpoche, Khenpo Sunam Togyal Rinpoche, and numerous other monks, nuns, lamas, lay people too numerous to mention. His Holiness the Dalai Lama often asks Khenpo about the fine points of Dzogchen teachings, both for scholarly reasons and for his own practice, the Dzogchen practice being an important part also of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's Buddhist practice. Khenpo Rinpoche is renowned as a Rinne master, learned in all schools of Tibetan Buddhism. Rinne means non-sectarian. He's renowned as a non-sectarian master of Tibetan tantric traditions. He is a poet, a scholar, and widely respected as one of the most accomplished meditation masters that Tibet has produced. I'd also like to introduce Damchala, Khenpo Rinpoche's wife, who graces us with her presence and is herself teaching all the time. Lama Suryadas, I should introduce also, is our translator tonight, but he's also much more than a translator. He is one of Khenpo Rinpoche's closest disciples. As it happens, he's also an American. He has been trained by Khenpo Rinpoche in multiple 3-year meditation retreats. And Khenpo Rinpoche, together with Suryadas's other teachers, which include Kala Rinpoche, His Holiness Karmapa, Dilga Khyentse Rinpoche, and Dudra Rinpoche, have authorized him, even though he's an American, to teach and train others in the practice traditions of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And Suryadas is the resident Lama here in Cambridge for the ongoing study and practice of these traditions. So it's my great pleasure to give you Nyoshul Khenpo Rinpoche.
Thank you, John. Sanje Chudan Sauchi Chonam La Chanchu Bada Dani Kyabzu Chu Dagi Jinsao Jipe Sao Nam Ji Drola Pechi Sanje Drabajo Sanjay Judan Sauchi Janam La Chanchu Bada Dani Kyabzu Chu Dagi Jinsao Jipe Sao Nam Ji Drola Pechi Sanjay Drabajo Sanjay Judan Sauchi Janam La Janchu Bada Dani Kyabzu Chu Dagi Jinsao Jipe Sao Nam Ji Drola Pechi Sanje Drapasho Om Ujan Yuljina Chasa Pema Gesa Dambala Yatsen Choging Udruvnyi Pema Jane Shizudra Kudu Kandra Mabaikur Ki Jesu Dadru Ki Love Jishek Susa Guru Pema Siddhi Ho Om Ahom Benza 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 Guru Pema Siddhi Ho. Tam Sriyam Kuro Ha 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 Ho Bhagava Sava Tata Gata Vajra Mame Mutsa Vajri Bhava Ma Samaya Sattva Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tena Pati Sadrita Me Bhava Sutukaya Me Bhava Supakaya Me Bhava Anurata Me Bhava Sarvasiddhi Me Trayas Savakama Tsutsame Sitam Sriyam Kuro Ha 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 Ho Bhagava Savatata Gata Vajra Mame Muts Vajri Bhava Ma Samaya Sattva Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tena Pati Sadrita Me Bhava Sutakaya Me Bhava Supakaya Me Bhava Anurata Me Bhava Sarvasiddhi Me Trayas Savakama Tsutsame Sitam Sriyam Kuro Ha 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 Ho Bhagava Savatata Gata Vajra Mame Mutsa Vajri Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopati Sadrita Me Bhava Sutukaya Me Bhava Supakaya Me Bhava Anurata Me Bhava Sarvasiddhi Me Traya Sarvakama Sutta Me Sitam Sriyam Kuru Ha 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 Bhagava Savatata Gata Vajra Mame Mutsa Vajri Bhava Mahasama Sattva Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopati Sadrita Me Bhava Sutukaya Me Bhava Supakaya Me Bhava Anurata Me Bhava Sarvasiddhi Me Traya Sarvakama Sutta Me Sitam Sriyam Kuru Ha 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 Bhagava Savatata Gata Vajra Mame Mutsa Vajri Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Sarvasiddhi Me Traya Sarvakama Sutta Me Sitam Sriyam Guru Ha 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 Bhagava Savatata Gata Vajra Mame Mutsa Vajri Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopati Sadrita Me Bhava Sutukaya Me Bhava Supakaya Me Bhava Anurata Me Bhava Sarvasiddhi Me Traya Sarvakama Sutta Me Sitam Sriyam Kuru Ha 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 Bhagava Savatata Gata Vajra Mame Mutsa Vajri Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopati Sadrita Me Bhava Sutukaya Me Bhava Supakaya Me Bhava Anurata Me Bhava Sarvasiddhi Me Traya Sarvakama Sutta Me Sitam Sriyam Guru Ha 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 Bhagava Savatata Gata Vajra Mame Mutsa Vajri Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Sonam Dihi Tam Chezipani Tabne Nepedranam Tamjene Kega Nachi Bala Trupayi Sipe Sale Drawa Shu Jancho Semcho Krimpoche Makye Pana Kegyo Chu Kyepa Nyampa Mepa Yo Gane Gandu Pelaju Rinpoche says greetings and blessings to all, and it's nice to see many familiar faces again. You can see many people who were here last night, so he feels that everything has already been said between all that was said last night and all that was expounded in the last hour. Meditation is like an ocean. It's infinite, it's limitless. To talk about it is totally meaningless. If one wonders what is the heart of the Buddhist teachings, it is the great compassion, the unconditional loving love and compassion, called bodhicitta in Sanskrit, the altruistic, enlightened mind, heart-mind. If we look around here and all around this great university and this great kingdom of America, you see many, many people, different people, kinds of people from all over the world, and also many other kinds of beings. And if one wonders, what is the commonality or what that we all share? What is the common thread that binds us? Isn't it affection, empathy, compassion, connectedness? "2,500 years ago, a person named Shakyamuni became enlightened Buddha by following a path of awakening. And it was his intention to solve the riddle of suffering, of old age and death, to find liberation for all. And the rays of that sun-like awakening or Buddha's enlightenment are still shining on us today in many, many ways. The only thing that's required of us is to practice these teachings. We hardly even have to discover them. They are available, accessible, almost self-evident everywhere these days. We don't have to struggle to find the answer to this riddle of where awakening or freedom and peace lies. These teachings have been taught. They are available and accessible. The only thing that's required of us is a tiny bit of application, of effort, of interest. We put great effort into many things in our life. If we put only a small percentage of that effort into the spiritual practice that we have received, it would have inconceivable benefits for ourselves and for all beings everywhere. It might look like we're just having a small club meeting here, meeting here tonight, of not much significance, of not much duration, without much profound intellectualization. But think of it this way, it's as it's said in the scriptures, if even one person gives rise to the precious bodhicitta, the thought of enlightenment for the benefit of all suffering beings, then all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Devas and all kinds of beings seen and unseen throughout boundless universes rejoice, clap their hands in joy, sing praises, throw down showers and flowers, and so on. If even one being gives rise for one moment to this precious bodhicitta, the enlightened heart-mind. This precious bodhicitta is like the universal ruler, or the Rinpoche says the king of the town or the country. For example, if the leader of New York or of America gives rise to a very positive thought to benefit others, then many powerful benefits can ensue. Likewise, if any being gives rise to such a powerful thought to benefit others, then many, many benefits will naturally ensue from that altruistic awakening or intention, the bodhisattva motivation. "1,300 years ago, when the Tibetan king Trison Detsen generated or gave rise to the thought of enlightenment, including all of the people of his kingdom, and invited teachers to bring the Buddhist teachings from India, just from that single thought, or the dawning of awakened heart and mind in one person who happened to be that king, the entire country of Tibet for the last 1,300 years has been comprised almost solely of Buddhist practitioners on the path, including many, many who have gained enlightenment, peace, and freedom. If that king of ancient times had just thought to get the teachings for himself, then he would have sequestered himself with one of the Indian masters and realized enlightenment and disappeared into a rainbow body or into nirvana, and that would have been the end of the matter, and Tibet would have continued to be a savage place until now, and the Tibetan lamas and the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism would never have developed if that king had not wished that all beings who are suffering get the benefit from the liberating teachings, not just one person himself. Isn't it obvious that everyone wants more or less the same wants and needs and aspires to more or less the same as oneself does? Then how can we work solely for one's own limited ends when one considers the boundless nature of the world, the infinite numbers of beings and sufferings around us? And if one wants to alleviate suffering, how can we ignore the suffering in beings and just concentrate on our own momentary pleasure and pain? When that king, renowned as Trison Detsen 1,300 years ago, received the precious, secret, and profound Dzogchen teachings, the non-dual tantric teachings from the Indian masters Guru Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, the Lotus-born, and the Pandit Bimalamitra. He realized the great perfection in his own experience, and yet out of that freedom and peace, he did not rest in complacence, indifference, but a wave of dynamic compassion or activity, altruistic activity for the benefit of all, poured forth in many, many forms. So it's not just that one realizes freedom and then is free from positive or altruistic action. There was a series of so-called Dharma kings that followed that king, and each of them practiced and realized the teachings and also displayed or developed many beneficial activities to preserve and promulgate the sacred Dharma, like developing translation schools, sanghas for practitioners of both sexes and so on, monks and nuns. And since that time, Tibet has been more or less a country, a zone of peace. Before that time, the Tibetan cavalry had conquered much of Central Asia, from Chang'an in the east to the Ganges in the south. But since that time, Tibet has been like a religious, this is slight hyperbole, but a religious cloister in which the Dharma alone has been developed rather than technology and war. And Rinpoche compared it somewhat to the fact that there have been much religious warfare in Asia over the centuries, between the Hindus and the Muslims, for example, and the Sikhs, and so on, and that Buddhism has mostly been free from such warfare, and that's a sign of an outer sign of the pacifying influence of the Buddhist teaching for peace and well-being, even in the wilds of the Himalayas and the great plains of Central Asia. Until the 1950s, these teachings were mostly sort of remained in the Himalayas, in Tibet, and so on, practiced and cherished and cultivated over 1,000 years, a period over 1,000 years, and suddenly it was like the dam bursting. The red tide swept over Tibet, and the lamas and their teachings were forced into exile in order to protect or to practice their religious and their cultural way of life. And it is to the benefit of beings in the world that these teachings have spread widely now. And it's almost impossible to find a country in the world where these teachers and teachings are not active today. Rinpoche started to mention some of even the more obscure ones. I couldn't even understand the names of those countries that he was pulling out, in Azerbaijan and I don't know where. He knows lamas everywhere these days. And the teachings live. Usually when we think about positive activities, about compassion, about service and altruism, we still remain within the narrow confines of our ego cherishing, in the sense that we only think about helping a few people around us, or the people in our town, or in America, in our country. But the altruistic, enlightened heart and mind, the precious bodhicitta, is a boundless, inconceivable force, a great wave of blessings that includes the infinite sweep of the past, the present, the future, all possible universes, all the different forms of beings, seen and unseen in this world and elsewhere. It's not something that just relates to those we can think of, or those we know, or those we see. So back to our history, what was it that the Dharma King Trisen Detsen actually realized when these wandering sages, Padmasambhava and Bimalamitra, walked from India with the Dzogchen teachings, the non-dual tantric teachings? What did that king realize which blazed forth as this wave of beneficial activities for hundreds of years? What he realized was the very nature, the absolute nature of his own, so-called his own, of the heart and mind, the nature of the mind. If a powerful being like Hitler gave rise to a positive thought, like to spread the spiritual life all over the world, he probably would have been very, very successful. But unfortunately, he gave rise to the opposite kind of thought and tried to spread something quite different all over the world. And this is merely from the power of one's own intentions, the power of conditioning, and how one aspires. What one attends to and intends makes all the difference. Anyone who realizes the true nature of the mind in the present moment is equal to the enlightened ones. There is no question of history, race, language, or anything else. And even Hitler or Stalin, if they could recognize the nature of all beings and their own true nature, it would be impossible for them to perpetrate any harm. That's why it's extremely important for each of us to take responsibility, or to rise to the possibility of really giving birth to this great selfless awareness, this true nature of our own heart and mind for the benefit of all beings, and not just to continue to seek outwardly for satisfaction for ourselves alone. When we realize the true nature, the illusory, dreamlike nature of awareness, we realize all things in the universe as illusory, dreamlike, insubstantial, unreliable, ungraspable. Doesn't the tight fist of self-grasping and attachment have to loosen? Realizing the insubstantiability of all dreamlike phenomena, how can we fight? How can we exploit How can we harm? How can we hoard? How can we die? When we realize the illusory nature of all things, how can we, how much longer will we fatigue ourselves with endless, infinite, worldly efforts, which are just like chasing our own tail? A human life is very, very short if we look at the sweep of geological time and infinite space. Very short. It might be a very short life, and yet we have the feeling, it's very hard to believe that we're going to die, isn't it? We might, the way we act, the way we assume, it seems like we're going to live for hundreds of years, and we don't have to prioritize our time or consider death and impermanence as if we were going to live for hundreds of years. If we notice the fact that all compounding phenomena, all constructions, all things that are put together fall apart, all that is born dies, even this beautiful building, so solid, will not be here forever, one way or another. When we start to consider that, and then we start to hear songs and poems, how we die and our life is short, but the mountains remain forever, the ocean remains forever, the stars remain forever. This also is very relative. Nothing remains forever. Everything that's constructed falls apart, that is compounded, that is fabricated. Yet the unconditioned nature of things is unborn and undying. If we realize that, that is the nature of the innate great perfection. That is beyond change. That is beyond suffering. That is beyond birth and death. Then don't we naturally recognize everything as a projection of our own hopes and fears? All the things we invest our time and energy in, which will eventually come to an end. Don't we start to consider reordering our priorities, taking into account the short time we have to take on this great work of awakening to that which is deathless, unborn, and undying, unconditioned? That's the practice of Dzogchen. Abiding by the unconditioned, by the unfabricated, by the unconstructed nature of things as they are. When one is introduced to or recognizes the true nature of things as they are, then there's a great relief, a great dropping off, a great letting go of all these illusory building projects, fabrications. We get out of the construction business, loose translation, and start to abide more in things as they actually are, without hope that we're going to produce something better, such as nirvana. Without fear we're going to degenerate into something worse, such as samsara. Recognition comes that samsara and nirvana are inseparable. All dualities are inseparable and relational. Both samsara and nirvana are Dzogpa Chenpo, the innate great perfection within the nature of things as they are. The great enlightened vagabond of the turn of the century, Patrul Rinpoche, had a disciple, his Dzogchen successor, Dharma heir, the inheritor of his wisdom, if you like. His name was Shedrup Tempe Nima. Luntok Tempe Nima. He received instructions from his teacher, Patrul Rinpoche. Patrul Rinpoche always slept outside. He had a vow never to sleep inside. So Luntok Tempe Nima received teachings from Patrul Rinpoche, and this is in eastern Tibet about 100 years ago. And then after having many teachings and clarifying those teachings with his teacher, he went into meditation retreat in a cave on a mountainside surrounded by trees. When Luntok Tempe Nima was in this cave, he heard the echoes in the valley. It was a very empty wilderness. And one day, after a long time, he heard the echoes of somebody riding around on a horse and looking for gold. It was supposed to be some treasure. This person was singing a song of searching for gold or something like that in this very, very wild, untamed wilderness. And Luntok Tempe Nima was sitting up in the cave hearing this song echoing in the horse footsteps for a few days. And a great compassion was born in his heart, realizing that this person was probably not going to find any gold, and he was spending all of his time seeking for this treasure, this probably fake missing treasure, unfindable treasure in a vast wilderness. And even if he found the treasure, it would still not satisfy him, and his life would soon come to an end, the treasure finder. And a great compassion was born in the heart of this hermit yogi. And he sang a song about this, which came down to us today, telling this story, how whether or not the worldly people, the worldly seeker, finds what is being sought, it is not satisfying. Whether or not the spiritual seeker finds what is sought, it is satisfying. it's said in the teachings that usually in the worldly life, mountainous efforts bring very small results in terms of lasting fulfillment. But in the spiritual life, very, very small efforts bring fulfilling results. Even if we accumulated vast wealth, many possessions, fame, large land holdings and buildings and so on, as we accumulate them, we just get involved in more and more fights about them, or else our relatives, as we get older, we have to decide who to leave them to. Things get more complicated and problematic. Even on our deathbed, instead of being peaceful, we're surrounded by these continual problems. And all that we worked for our whole life seems to be totally useless. And we might die with regrets. That would truly be regrettable. To die having unfinished business. To die with regrets about what we have not completed during our short lifespan. Actually, the vicious cycle of dualistic clinging or samsaric existence, conditioned existence, goes on and is extremely tiring, unsatisfying, and self-perpetuating. It keeps going on. Unless we cut this continuity, this string of clinging with recognition, with awareness, with awakening, it will just go on, and we will never find peace or satisfaction, no matter how much we seek for it. And not just ourselves. If we notice that all around us, beings are going on with this ceaseless seeking, like seeking for fool's gold, like seeking for a false treasure which was never lost, investing in fool's gold, unsatisfying in the beginning, unsatisfying in the end. Doesn't a great compassion pour forth from whatever realization or recognition we might have of the true meaning of things? America is renowned all over the world as the greatest country, the biggest country, the most successful and powerful country. It seems sometimes that everybody in the world wants to get to America. If you think about technology or science, America has always been renowned as the Mecca of technology. Maybe we have to make a new machine, new kind of machine. I think Rinpoche has a patent idea here. Now that we're in America, we should use this technology to make a machine that in one instant can oversee or look into like a great X-ray or MRI machine. He just saw this recently, MRI, that can, like, without going into things, see through everything. And it's like the great overlord, overvision, that can see actually where is the path of delusion that brings suffering, where is the path of awakening that brings freedom, that can in an instant diagnose and like separate the milk from the whey, so that the way is totally clear. Excuse the translation. God knows what he said. What he's thinking, I mean. Actually, there was one Lama that he had such a machine. His name was Longchenpa. He was a Dzogchen master. He had this universal vision. He could actually see into the karma, the conditioning, cause and effect that's running beings and things in our minds. And with this machine, this enlightened vision, could actually see the way things are going in the future, where coming from in the past, and could guide beings in the way that this over vision and machine would be able to see things. And this he saw solely through his awakened awareness, this bodhicitta, this enlightened mind, which is within each of us, yet unused. That machinery or that technology, that enlightened technology, still exists today by the blessings, by the compassion of those enlightened masters and mistresses of the past, that's passed it down to us through the living teachings, the living teachers from one to another. That technology exists today that can actually show us and reveal to us the way to further suffering, or the way to great peace, enlightenment, and the innate great perfection. This is not something that we have to reinvent. It is within each of us. It's only up to us to recognize it, to actualize it, to realize it totally. When this enlightened, called omniscient Dzogchen master Longchenpa, 600 years ago, was ready to, it says, pass into nirvana, we can say die. He sang a song saying, "Now my work is done. At last, great ease and peace, I assume my primordial throne of unborn and undying being." This is the awakening that takes place through this enlightened machinery called the Dzogchen teaching, the heart of Dharma teachings. If you wonder where these teachings exist, they remain even written down. Of course, you can't learn it from books, but the books exist as support for the practice and the teachings, the living teachings in Longchenpa's writings called the Nyingtig Yabshi, the 4 or 5 great heart essence collections. Also the Zodun of Longchenpa, the 7 great treasuries. And what was mentioned last night, the Dzogpa Chenpo Semni Ngalso, the great inherent freedom and ease of mind. And moreover, the trilogy known as the Self-Liberated Nature of Awareness, the Semni Rangdrol by Longchenpa. All of these teachings come down to us today, not only in books, but as living transmission from Dzogchen masters. You might wonder, who are these books and teachings for? Where are they kept? How to get them? All of these belong to whoever practices the teachings. If the parents have children, if a couple has children, it's up to the children whether they really endeavor in studies and education or not. The parents can help them, but the children have to do it themselves. And the parents, no matter how much wealth they have, they can pass it on to the children. Again, it's up to the children how they use it. If the children get well educated, if they tame their natures, if they become really impeccable or upstanding individuals, isn't that to the benefit of all around them also, not just their own parents? If the children, however, go in the other direction and get in all kinds of trouble, isn't that to the detriment of all, not just the parents, but the detriment of all those around them? Likewise, it's very important, or it depends on each of us, what happens with the precious teachings, with what we've received, with what we've inherited, with what we're educating ourselves and training ourselves in. Until now, these precious teachings have certainly continued, so they are ours for the taking. But what will we do with them? How well can we use them? What results we get are mainly up to the practitioners themselves, ourselves. The Dzogchen teachings are renowned as being having great qualities, as being vast and profound, swift and easy and comfortable. I think that means accessible or not austere. These teachings are profound, swift, comfortable, accessible, and vast. They are beyond the mind, beyond the intellect, beyond studies and theories. They are the nature of things as they are. In these degenerate ages, in the dark age, in what's called the age of the dregs, according to the Buddhist doctrine, in the later stages of the last few hundred years of Buddhism, when the darkness, when danger proliferates and blazes, when the whole world can dissolve in one great conflagration, then these Dzogchen teachings, it's also predicted, blaze likewise, blaze forth. The nature of this Dzogchen Dharma is like a powerful medicine. It's not just an aspirin to take away a symptom of a headache, but it's like a powerful medicine that you shoot into your vein and immediately reaches your heart. The more suffering, the more Dzogchen will arise. This is the time of Dzogchen, whatever the clock says. This is the time of Dzogchen. The time of the downpour, the rainfall of Dzogchen. It's very gratifying to Rinpoche to see many people interested in the sublime teachings. Many learned people, many well-practiced, many spiritually experienced people and teachers have come. It's really beautiful to share in this together, isn't it? Western people are very sophisticated, educated, astute. This is a teaching that they can definitely take up directly without a great deal of theory, of acculturation and travel and so on. Even today there are Western teachers of this teaching, Western lamas, Western monks, Western nuns, Western yogis and yoginis who are well experienced in it. So this is a cause for great rejoicing. Don't think that this is an obscure teaching that one can only find far away. Rinpoche says he's done everything he can to pass on what he knows to other Western disciples, like myself and others, some here and some elsewhere. So today the flowers are blooming from many, many seeds that have been spread over many years. If you can make connection with teachers in your own place, that's very fortunate. As the old Tibetan lamas like himself just come and go like the wind. You never know when they're going to come, you never know when they're going to go. And these days, this kind of teaching, it's very important and possible to practice it together in our own countries, ourselves. So please enjoy it. This is something that one can actually do. It's doable. We can train in it, we can accomplish it. That's all the kind of speculations that he has tonight. One more? Rinpoche has one thought. One more. Usually we have a lot of discursive thoughts, speculations, and all kinds of analytical investigations. This is fine, but this is like having a job. This is not really something we must do all the time. But everybody has total freedom to produce as many discursive thoughts and analytical theories as they want. Rinpoche would be willing to entertain some questions, if there are any. Well, we'd much rather just meditate a little, chant a little together. But if there's any pressing, burning questions, please. Touch.
Some instructions in Dzogchen.
When you enter into the Dzogchen practice, you have to, or you should rely on the blessings or the transmission of a qualified lineage master. Cultivate some devotion for the teachers and the teaching, and compassion for others, include others in your practice, and then enter into a non-fabricated or totally spacious and open awareness that is beyond the mind, beyond will, beyond worldly activities such as hope and fear, past and future, and trying to do anything. Don't overlook the importance of renunciation, of compassion and devotion. All of these very much support the Dzogchen leaving it as it is practice. they erode self-orientation, they dissolve self-grasping, and they allow one to ease more naturally into spacious, unfixated awareness. And then at the end of your practice, it's important to share or dedicate the merits from the practice with all beings, include all in the practice that is going on and continuing, so one doesn't reinforce one's habitual selfish interests. In short, awareness is the heart of the practice, a very unfixated, non-grasping, present awareness. Nothing to do with effort, nothing to do with concentration or controlling the mind, simply settling back into the natural awareness that is already present, not overlooking that and looking for something else or trying to fabricate something else. Although this is definitely the moment of Dzogchen, the great perfection, the view, the meditation, and the activity or behavior definitely takes time to mature, to come to fruition, to ripen. It's not a matter of a few hours or days. If you aspire to be a millionaire, how long does it take to accumulate all those dollars? Panachi Bala Drupaye Sipe Saule Drawa Drawa Shu Kewa Diyin Yoduda Sopa Champa Drojunu Drawa Chicha Malupa Deyi Sala Gopa Shu Janju Semjo Rinpoche Magye Pana Kegyu Chu Kyeba Nyampa Medba Yong Gane Gandu Helwa Shu. When we pray, when we chant, it's important to do so from the heart, not just from the mouth. And we are praying, we are affirming that may there be peace in this world and throughout the universe. May there be freedom from fear, from danger. May there be an end of war, an end of famine, an end of suffering and disease. May all beings be fulfilled, find great peace, and realize enlightenment. And also it was prayed, may the precious enlightened mind, the bodhicitta, arise where it has not arisen, and where it has arisen, may it continually flourish and flower and pervade infinitely more and more for the benefit of all beings everywhere. All of us are afflicted by the four great terrors: the suffering of birth, labor, becoming, the suffering of aging, old age, the suffering of sickness, and the suffering, the fear of death and the unknown. These four rivers, these torrents of terror. We pray that all beings may be freed or cross over from these great flood of terror, of fear, of suffering, of pain, and that even one enlightened being may arise from all the practitioners gathered here, so that there will be infinite benefit for infinite beings everywhere, just like the Sakyamuni Buddha, who arose in India, has benefited millions and billions of beings since then. The Buddhist teachings are extremely rare, perhaps unique in this world, something to cherish, to uphold, to live up to, and something we can certainly realize to the fullest ourselves. Let's not think only the Buddha could get enlightened. There have been thousands of enlightened beings, hundreds of thousands, millions, in India, in Tibet, and everywhere in the world, don't doubt that. And prayer, making these positive affirmations and aspirations, has been a very important part of setting in motion the wave of beneficial cause and effect that brings about freedom and enlightenment. Don't overlook the importance of cause and effect actuated by prayer towards one's own aspirations being fulfilled. That's how many have gotten realization and enlightenment. May all of your enlightened aspirations be fulfilled, and may we meet each other again on the path. Best wishes and Tasha Delay to all. If you come quickly. In case you're not familiar with the custom, Rinpoche is putting a protection cord around the neck of each person who comes for blessing as a benediction. He has tied a knot in the cord and blown the power of his prayers and mantras into that knot as a protection. So please tie the knot after you receive the cord. Tie another knot in the string. Tommy Leo's great friend. He said thank you. And Tommy Leo's great friend. Kemche Yarna and Pedro Nam. And should be trying to set the dog which Kemche Leo. Chima Champion.
Ha ha ha.